Welcome to Deep Dive. I'm Kevin Benedict, and I want to welcome my guest today, Max Kuehler. Max, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Max is the SVP of Marketing here at HPE, and you have a huge amount of responsibilities. But before we get into that, let's just talk about the title you have here, okay? So the long version of that is Max Kuehler, Marketing Strategy, Analytics, Operations at HPE, Global Head of E-Commerce. Woo! I mean, do you fold out your business card?
I do. Actually, I just stack them together.
That's pretty funny. Well, Max, that's a lot of areas of responsibility. Let's talk about that. Let's just bundle. You have the marketing side and e-commerce side. I haven't seen a lot of combinations like that. Talk to us about that.
Sure. Once again, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk shop for a little while. I do have an exciting role, and I love what I do. So in many ways, my position at the company is evocative of what's happening to marketing in general. We're in a specific moment in time, and I'll describe sort of where we are from an evolutionary point of view in marketing at the company, and digital marketing in particular. But in essence, what you see is the move away from very old organizational paradigms. You used to have this offshore model. It was labor arbitrage, these offshore centers, if you will. You used to have an e-commerce operation that didn't really manage for revenue or e-penetration. It really just managed a continuous flow of catalog orders. And what we've been doing here for the last 4 years is transforming in a way where you take all these passive functions and you actually move them much closer to the customer, much closer to sales, much closer to revenue. And so what you see there is the history and legacy of what used to be analytics, shared services, platforms, a marketing CTO type operation, and we're actually directing it much more in support of sales and much closer to our customer partners.
Wow. So you also represent so many different products in that same role.
I do.
How do you manage that complexity?
Well, I think complexity is, first of all, it's a really important theme, and complexity is growing. The pace of change is accelerating. These are not throwaway concepts. It's what we live every day. So last time I looked, we had about 1 million different product, service, bundles, and configurations.
Oh my!
So you can imagine this is very real. But I think we have to practice a couple of key principles. One is you got to look at the portfolio constantly and review what it is that you're selling, what it is that the market wants, how you're going to market it, and you really want to move away from that legacy of a giant technology behemoth, which we were 5 years ago, to a much more market-centered company that really understands demand and assesses our performance against our customer needs constantly. And that is, believe it or not, a new muscle for a company that's now only a quarter of the size that we were before we split 5 years ago.
So what does that look like? What kind of tactics are you employing to make that work?
Well, we have gotten a lot more sophisticated at sensing demand and precursors of demand and interest in the market.
Okay.
Second, we used to look at pipeline reporting in a very siloed way. We sort of were looking at where are we in a long buying cycle, what products are people surfing about, where are they asking for information. But now what we have is a much more complete view of the customer, and we're using AI as an example to really understand how a chat session on our website is going to evolve. And in many ways, we're getting better at sensing what the real needs of our customers are when they're in that buying journey before they can even express them. So we're experimenting a lot, using analytics in an applied way, and really looking at a 360 view of the market constantly. And again, that's a new thing for a big company like ours.
Oh, yeah. And with the advent and evolution of digital transformation and e-commerce, we see a lot more of the interactions with customers and prospects in a digital environment.
Right.
And so you having the responsibility of e-commerce, how do you monitor that? And are you monitoring end-to-end customer journeys? Do you have, what does that look like?
I mean, it is an incredible new frontier. So I'll say a couple things. Number one, it is all about omnichannel. And whether or not you're looking at a web experience or an e-commerce experience or an event experience offline, customers aren't really interested in that point experience, that point moment. They want an end-to-end relationship with the company. So that's number one. Number two is we believe in conversational selling. We believe in intimacy.
Okay.
So despite the fact that we have a tremendous amount of data, we don't want to market or sell to people all the same way. We really want to build on a relationship with our customers. And third is we embrace complexity. So the reality is, unlike the B2C world, the B2B world is in many ways a lot more complex. You've got 4 to 6 month buying cycles. You've got 30 or 40 people that could be part of a buying group. You have a lot of different levers across the funnel. And the funnel's not linear either, right? It's in many ways circular, and in many ways you really do have to think about the lifetime value and the lifetime relationship you're going to have with customers. So those are three important principles that we try to apply.
So, but I imagine there is personalization in the content you show people and things like that.
Yes, there's a great deal of personalization. Not only personalization, but how does personalization start to lead into personal identification in the GDP, in the post-GDPR world?
Yep.
How do you actually create enough of a marketing value proposition for our customers that they want to be engaged, not just marketed to? And how do we pitch that in a way that really does demonstrate value to our customers even before they bought a product, for example? And a big part of what we have to do is manage the digital front door to our company with all the different range of products, edge to cloud, that we sell. It's very important to really describe our products in a way that map to business needs as our customers understand them, not just the box, which was the old way of doing marketing at a company like ours.
Absolutely. So we've talked about e-commerce, we talked about marketing. How have you seen this whole digital transformation and the move to more digital interactions affect the sales group? You know, how have they had to change their methodologies?
That's a very good question. And I think it's different and unique depending on what company you're talking about and what sector you're in. What I'll say about us is that we have developed over the past 2 or 3 years in particular an incredibly close partnership with sales. Marketing used to be regarded as a central kind of corporate function, if you will. In fact, they used to call us a function. And we've worked really, really hard to earn the label of a go-to-market partner. And that's very, very different culturally and the ways of working. In the case of embracing digital, marketing at HPE has, in many, not always, led the way. So, for example, we are in a business that has a lot of direct coverage with a lot of salespeople, kind of feet on the street, if you will, boots on the ground. But we also have sensors and feelers out in the digital ether, and we work very hard to marry those two worlds so that, for example, if an opportunity has a certain person in a buying group associated with it, and they all of a sudden turn out to be a stalled lead, as an example, or a stalled opportunity at Salesforce, but we start to see them doing some interesting browsing in new or adjacent product areas, we immediately get that information to sales. Similarly, we look at ROI across the range of experiences. So we have a marketing mix model that we use to look at all the impact of marketing across all the touches, offline and online. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to nurture all that experience as one in support of sales and identifying opportunities, cultivating opportunities, and ultimately winning the sale.
Wow, you know, so while you were sharing there, Max, I'm just thinking to myself, marketing used to be so simple. It was the creative types that would do brochures and booklets and things like that. Now, I mean, with data science, data analytics, all this kind of stuff, and I know that's under your responsibility too.
It is.
Talk to us about that part of your role and responsibility.
In many ways, that's the most exciting thing that I do. And I like to go back to basics. I mean, at the end of the day, whether it's marketing or another function, you know, we're all awash in information, complexity. And I think that's led to some pretty fundamental observations for me. Number one, no matter what kind of fancy stuff you do in marketing, at the end of the day, what we do is we create experiences. Whether it's for employees, our partners, our sales team, or our customers, we create experiences. So I like to have a little fun with what we do, and so one example of this is one of the applications of machine learning and AI that we use is how do we gamify the chat experience for our chat agents? And so we have a little pilot we're running now. We're based on not just the initial words that open a proactive chat on our website, but the exchange and how it follows and the sequencing of those words. We can actually compute a probability that exchange is going to turn into a lead. And our chat agents love that because it gives them, a little bit of a Vegas casino type experience that also ups their game real time. So you have real time training. You don't need to wait to take a chat agent offline and go train them up. That's happening real time. And it's a tremendous opportunity for them to also learn what works and what doesn't in a real-time, analytically derived way.
How fun!
It's something they enjoy, and it's got a triple bottom line. It's good for our customers, it's good for our retention and the whole experience of being a chat agent, and it's been a very exciting use and application of AI.
Wow, perfect. So when we look at the whole analytics space, are you better able to then identify from the very beginning if a customer or a prospect is a better target than another prospect? And do you, just how does that work?
Sure. No, I think in the traditional paradigm, it was all about prospecting and using data. Mm-hmm. And this reflects a little bit the whole evolution of data and data science and analytics in the last couple of years. So it really was about looking at a whole mainline, a whole world of data, and then really trying to mine it and figuring out who had the highest propensity to buy, who had the highest propensity to convert, who was sort of next in line. Mm-hmm. Now we understand, and we're beginning to understand even more, how our interactions can actually change the way customers and prospects understand what they need. So it's actually a much more dynamic situation, and that is what you have with the rise of AI and machine learning, right? You've got these data sets that are rapidly updating, and unless you actually question the fundamental starting point, the baseline of demand, if you will, you run the risk of creating a lot of bias in your model. Similarly, the way that you understand a customer's potential at the beginning of a conversation before you've uttered a word is different than the way you should understand that after the end of the first conversation.
Max, you're just adding more complexity. Now you're talking about real-time dynamic complexity, right?
That's right.
So based upon their actions, the whole direction or roadmap can change on where they're going to go.
That's right.
Now, when we look at those kind of dynamic environments, I'm just thinking to myself, having been closely involved in marketing and sales for many, many years, is that that has to impact the content generation process.
Yes.
Do you need more content today or less content than you would have 5 years ago?
I wish there was a simple answer to that. The reality is, if you just take a step back, whether it's the production or distribution of content, that is the largest pool of cost.
Yes.
Often in a marketing organization. And the reality is it varies. We don't have an even modal distribution of how content is consumed. By and large, I'd say the average marketing organization tends to try to refresh content as a whole in kind of a monolithic way too often without taking a step back and say, hey, there's actually some stuff that's evergreen that works really well. There's actually some stuff that's really, really important at the margins. But there's another meta point I want to make here, which is we live in an era of so much complexity and so much change and so much technology, and it's only going to get better or worse depending on your perspective, that you really have to revisit these fundamental metaphors and notions about just the way that you work. So, for example, the technology stack isn't really a stack. It's really like an ecosystem of stuff. Similarly, with content, it is a very erratic distribution depending on whether we're talking about sales enablement, whether we're talking about
partner enablement,
the way we engage customers. And it goes back to that notion of really understanding how you can personalize the relationship with folks through digital versus simply drive reach and frequency through digital marketing.
Have you seen a difference in the consumption patterns of content from customers and prospects? Are they preferring a different, did they move from long form reports to video or podcasts? What are you seeing out there?
There definitely is a fragmentation of attention. And a lot of times we used to look at something like video and think about engagement in very conservative or traditional kind of ways. So we'd see how long people were, for example, viewing a video. We'd look at click-through from the video. Now we're starting to mine much deeper data around things like where is the cursor on the screen relative to where the video is being watched.
Okay.
How quickly are people scrolling down a page? Are they scrolling at a pace that indicates that they're searching for something or that they're reading?
Ooh.
And that gives us just a huge opportunity to increase the way to enhance the way we engage people.
Yeah. Oh my. So what have you learned?
I think email as a traditional marketing tactic is waning. Social and conversational selling is becoming much, much more important. Video is still hot. It's got to be gripping quickly. And in an area where you are trying to educate your consumers about what kind of storage appliance, for example, to buy. I mean, it's a complex decision. You can't descend too quickly into technical jargon, although you have to accept that many of your buyers are quite sophisticated. So it's really about giving them non-linear pathways to discover the company, the product, the needs that fulfills, and that's the new frontier for us on digital.
Oh, that's so interesting. So many companies, in my experience, they have they invest big in marketing at the corporate level, but as soon as marketing gets out to the peripheries, to the resellers, to the channels, it degrades very quickly.
It does.
Because they're just not making the same level of investment because the scale is different. So how do you ensure that investment you guys are making in just like phenomenal world-class marketing actually gets utilized all through the channels? Have you seen that as a challenge?
It certainly is a challenge. And I want to share a couple things that I'm very proud of here. So pound for pound and dollar for dollar, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise spends a little over half of what some of our competitors spend on marketing. That means that they expect a lot more from us in terms of not only how we influence the channel, but really anyone that wants to get to know the company. And in order to be able to deliver that, what we've done is we have centralized our marketing organization. So it's kind of, imagine like a barbell, right? So it's got a big kind of central corporate feel, and then we've invested a lot also in the front line. But there's very little middle layer at all. With regards to channel, we run a pretty strict governance process. We have worked relentlessly on improving our channel data. We monitor our marketing development funds so that they don't get applied in subscale ways that actually in the long term will hurt both the channel and the company. And we trust, but we verify its use. Now, having said that, this is constantly an area where, whether we're doing it in a very analytical way, like looking at what's our multi-touch way to think about return in the channel, what marketing do people kind of see, or whether it's a much more pragmatic way, like doing an audit, we're constantly evaluating whether or not we actually are driving the breakthrough that we need for the channel, because the channel is going through tremendous challenges and will continue to go through tremendous challenges.
Well, Max, thank you so much for just sharing your complex world with us. Last question here for the interview today is, where do you see marketing and sales, the convergence of those two? How do you see it evolving over the next 5 years?
That's a very good question, and something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. I'd say first is, and you alluded to this earlier, the old marketing is dead. The marketing as a purely kind of creative advertising driven function. That's not where we're at anymore. You have to really understand marketing as a revenue partner. You've got to understand the role of marketing, creating experiences for everyone, employees, executives, partners, customers, etc. I think that marketing is going to have to lead the way in transforming traditional selling to digitally led selling.
Interesting.
And we're going to do that by building internal capabilities like chat, application of AI on our website, seamless digital experiences on e-commerce, but then linking them also to very intimate forums and experiences, one-on-one selling, events, and so on. So that melding of the offline and the online is something that marketing has got to be able to lead the way in, so that we can have a better selling experience, a better needs discovery experience, and that's, I think, where we're headed, no question.
Wow, that's insightful and helpful for all of us that are in the marketing space. But now I have another question. So, sorry about that. The next question is subscription economy, because I was just thinking about what you were saying and thinking how experiences are not just upfront once and done. Right. They're now like an annual subscription kind of thing. How does that impact the way you market?
That's a very good question. So I think it has an impact in two areas most significantly. One is how we actually think about relationships with our partners. Mm-hmm. And I mean our partners, our marketing partners here. So we buy third-party data. We produce huge amounts of data ourselves. And those relationships are dynamic, and the leverage changes. This is not a situation where you buy a capability from Accenture or you buy a static data set and you enrich it. These are ongoing relationships that evolve all the time. Now, when you look actually not at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise as a consumer of the subscription economy, but actually what we do for our customers, there's no question the world is moving towards selling outcomes and consumption-based models, whether it's IT or the shift of the automotive landscape being from selling a car to transportation. And we're investing a lot in being much more seamless in the way that we sell consumption. GreenLake is an example of one of our products, versus moving away from selling the box. But it has a huge impact on how you market and how you sell, because now you've got to have your marketers and your salespeople be experts on outcomes, be experts on customer needs, be much more driven by the vertical that they're selling to. And I think we see this in particular in financial services, telecom, and manufacturing, but also in other areas, no question.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us here at Deep Dive, and thank you guys for joining us today as well.